Chosen one, what you're experiencing right now is not a panic attack, and it certainly isn't madness creeping in. What you're feeling is something deeper. Instead of focusing on your body, pause for a moment and listen with your spirit. There's a strange, heavy vibration resonating in your chest, almost like a quiet engine humming beneath the surface. For nearly 2,000 years, historians have described this era as a period of silence. But deep within, your soul knows that silence is not the right word. It was more like a long spiritual lockdown. And now something extraordinary is happening. You are among the first in 20 centuries whose mind and spirit are being awakened to operate on a frequency that has been dormant since the time of the apostles. You didn't arrive here randomly. No accident brought you to this moment. You were guided here by a precise divine alignment. Something within you, something written into the very code of your DNA, is beginning to unlock. A safety switch is opening, and with it comes a surge of spiritual energy. But when power awakens, it must be handled wisely. Without understanding it, the intensity could overwhelm the vessel carrying it. So this is not just a video. Think of it as a recalibration point. If these words resonate with your spirit, connect with the community of awakened souls gathering through the words of truth. And if your heart recognizes this message, take a moment to interact and let that alignment be known. Stay with this journey until the end, because tonight we're going to talk about how to stabilize the surge of energy that may currently feel like it's draining you. You'll begin to understand why what you call anxiety might actually be the misfiring of an extraordinary gift. We'll explore why this exact year could be the moment God chose to awaken you. And we'll even look at a fascinating concept, frequency research studied by organizations like NASA, that may help bridge the gap between the modern brain and ancient spiritual power. By the time we finish, that heavy pressure in your chest may stop feeling like a burden and start revealing itself as something entirely different, perhaps even your greatest strength. Think back to last night. It's around 3 in the morning. The world outside is completely silent. No traffic, no voices, nothing moving. Yet somehow your room feels loud. You're lying on your bed staring at the ceiling while the shadows in the corner seem to almost pulse with energy. Your hands grip the cold fabric of your sheets so tightly that your knuckles lose their color. Then comes the sensation, a wave of heat, like liquid fire, rising slowly up your spine. It begins at the base of your back and climbs upward until it settles right behind your neck. You want to cry out, but your throat feels locked. A question forms in your mind. God, am I breaking? Why does this feel so overwhelming? Why does it seem like I'm completely alone in this? And perhaps the strangest feeling of all, it's as if your body has become a house that's suddenly too small for the soul living inside it. There is a passage in the Bible, Epistle to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 22, that says all creation has been groaning together like a woman in labor. Many people read that verse and assume it refers only to the end of the world. But when you examine the original Greek word used there, stenazo, its meaning is far more vivid. It doesn't simply describe complaining or sighing. It describes the sound of something enormous trying to exist within a space that is far too small for it. Picture something massive attempting to pass through a doorway built for something tiny. That's what this word captures. So listen carefully, you are not falling apart. What you are experiencing is something closer to stenazo. Your ancient spirit, carrying wisdom that feels centuries old, is trying to breathe through a modern body that was never taught how to handle that much light. This is why your life has often felt different. You may have spent years feeling like the outsider, the black sheep, like you somehow landed on the wrong planet while everyone else seemed to navigate life effortlessly. At times you may have believed it was punishment. Maybe you even wondered if God had forgotten you, leaving you to wander through loneliness while others found connection and joy. But this moment reveals something surprising. What you thought was the peak of your suffering, the moment when you looked around and saw nothing but emptiness, was not the end of your journey. It was simply a false summit. Let's change the perspective. Imagine a massive power grid that has been shut down for centuries to protect it from a devastating storm. Now imagine that one house, just one, suddenly has the power restored. That house is you. God allowed periods of darkness, isolation, and silence in your life for a reason. It acted like a protective fuse. If this gift had awakened while your mind was surrounded by constant noise and chaos, the overload might have shattered your peace. Sometimes being forgotten by the world is the only way to be remembered by the Spirit. You were never an outcast. You were preparation. You are a prototype. But here is the challenge you are facing right now. Your spirit naturally operates in what many call the theta state, a deep frequency associated with intuition, creativity, and spiritual awareness. It's the kind of state often linked with the miracles described during the time of the apostles, where the voice of God felt close and clear. Meanwhile, the modern world forces your brain into something very different. The beta state. That's the high-speed survival frequency driven by stress, deadlines, notifications, and endless responsibilities. When your ancient theta awareness tries to communicate through a brain stuck in high-alert beta mode, friction happens. And that friction often shows up with familiar names: anxiety, exhaustion, mental overload. In reality, it's a frequency mismatch. Let's try something simple. Stay still for a moment. In your mind, imagine there's a dial located right in the center of your forehead. Right now, it's spinning wildly, glowing a sharp and restless red. That color represents pure survival mode. Now take a slow breath in, not just to relax your body, but to picture that dial gradually slowing down. Watch the color shift from intense red to a deep, calm purple. This purple tone represents clarity and resonance. Think of it as your internal frequency compass. From now on, whenever you feel overwhelmed, especially in crowded spaces or emotionally charged environments, pause and ask your spirit a simple question. Is this red noise or purple truth? You may discover something surprising. Much of the heaviness you feel isn't even yours. It's simply the emotional noise of a world that hasn't fully awakened yet. And the good news? You don't have to carry it. The scriptures give an intriguing instruction in the book of Daniel, specifically in chapter 12, verse 4. It says that the words should be closed up and the book sealed until the appointed time at the end. In the original Hebrew language, the word translated as seal is chatam. This term carries a deeper meaning than simply closing something. It refers to intentionally stopping the flow of something valuable so that it can be released at the proper moment in the future. For nearly 2,000 years, the frequency you carry inside you has been in that exact state, chatam. Not erased, not destroyed, simply paused. The reason was never because it was dangerous or evil. The real reason is that it was far too powerful for the eras that followed the time of the apostles. But now something is changing. The seal is beginning to open. In that same passage, Daniel says that in the final period, knowledge would dramatically increase. Many people instantly think about the internet, smartphones, and digital technology. But there is another possibility hidden within those words. What if that increase in knowledge is not just external information, but internal awakening? What if the lifting of the chatam is happening inside human consciousness, inside your DNA? That would explain why so many people are reaching a breaking point. You may have tried everything the modern world recommends: deep breathing exercises, therapy sessions, positive thinking techniques. Yet the sensation inside you, the fire running along your spine, only seems to intensify. At times it feels like pressure building inside a sealed container, as if something within you might burst. The reason may be simpler than it seems. Your physical brain is a three-dimensional biological system attempting to process information that feels far more complex than its usual design. In other words, your system is trying to carry more signal than it was trained to handle. You cannot simply pray away a biological limitation any more than you can solve a math problem by wishing the numbers would rearrange themselves. Prayer opens the door, but sometimes the body also needs a bridge to integrate what the spirit receives. So the real question becomes this: how can a modern brain, already overloaded by the stress of the 21st century, safely carry a spiritual voltage that feels centuries old without burning itself out? How could someone access the calm prophetic awareness described in Scripture without disappearing into a desert cave for 40 years? Interestingly enough, researchers, even those working within institutions like NASA, have studied the relationship between human brainwaves and states of creativity, intuition, and heightened perception. That research points to something fascinating. There may be a neurological bridge state that helps the brain shift out of the high-stress beta rhythm of survival and into the deeper theta rhythm associated with creativity, insight, and spiritual awareness. Think of it like tuning an instrument. When the strings are too tight, the sound becomes harsh. When they are tuned correctly, harmony appears. Many ancient mystics spent decades learning how to quiet their minds enough to reach that deep state of awareness. For them, it required years of isolation, silence, and discipline. But you are living in a completely different era, an era moving at lightning speed. Modern neuroscience has begun exploring methods that help guide the brain toward these calmer frequencies more efficiently. Some people refer to this idea as a neural bridge, because it helps translate the language of the spirit into patterns the brain can safely process. One concept that often appears in these discussions is sometimes called the genius wave. The idea behind it is surprisingly simple. Many studies suggest that young children naturally operate in slower brainwave states associated with imagination and intuitive learning. In fact, some researchers claim that the vast majority of children spend much of their early years in this highly creative mode. As people grow older, the pressures of the world gradually push the brain into faster, survival-oriented rhythms. Deadlines, bills, stress, notifications, life becomes a constant stream of beta-level alertness. But the original capacity never truly disappears. It simply becomes dormant. If that is true, then returning to a calmer neural rhythm is not about gaining something new. It is about recovering something that was always there. In a spiritual sense, that idea echoes what prophets have been saying for centuries. The human mind is capable of tuning itself to a much higher harmony when it learns to quiet the chaos. The Apostle Paul hints at this in the book of Epistle to the Philippians. In chapter 4, verse 7, he speaks of a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that guards both the heart and the mind. The original Greek language reveals something fascinating about that phrase. The expression translated as surpasses doesn't simply mean passing by. It implies something towering above, something so vast that the analytical mind cannot fully climb high enough to comprehend it. It is peace that stands like a mountain above anxiety. When the mind enters that kind of state, fear has difficulty taking hold. Not because problems vanish, but because calm rises higher than the storm. Yet even with this possibility, another emotion often appears alongside the awakening: fear. In quiet moments, you might find yourself wondering, if I truly step into this calling, will I lose who I am? Will the people I love still recognize me? Could this light change me so much that I become someone else? Those are not foolish questions. History has shown many examples of individuals who received influence, recognition, or power and then lost themselves along the way. Leaders who began with humility sometimes transformed into people driven by pride. Seeing that pattern naturally creates hesitation. But here is an important truth, that fear can actually be a sign of wisdom. In Hebrew thought, the word for glory, kavod, literally carries the idea of weight. True glory is heavy. It is responsibility, not decoration. Only those who understand the weight can be trusted to carry it. The people who fall apart when success arrives are often the ones who never respected the responsibility attached to it. They treated blessing like a toy, but someone who approaches it carefully, almost like handling a sharp sword, shows a completely different mindset. If anything, your caution may be the very evidence that you are ready for the next stage. Because the purpose of the fire you walked through was never to turn you into something monstrous. It was meant to shape you into a vessel strong enough to carry power without letting that power poison your heart. The hesitation you feel is not weakness. It is preparation. And once that ancient frequency truly awakens, why? Chosen one, the moment this new awareness begins to activate within you, resistance will follow. Darkness rarely celebrates when someone steps into clarity. Expect challenges designed to overload the system of your new life. One of the first tests often appears in the form of financial temptation. Soon, you may encounter an opportunity that seems attractive on the surface. A deal, a shortcut, or a proposal promising quick rewards. But look deeper. If accepting it requires abandoning the principles God just established in your spirit, then it is not a blessing. It is a trap wearing a friendly smile. The second test frequently shows up in relationships. Someone from your past might suddenly reach out. Or perhaps a new person appears with powerful chemistry that feels almost magnetic. Before rushing in, pause and ask yourself one important question. Did God speak about this connection before it appeared? If the answer is no, there is a strong possibility it is simply a distraction, something designed to pull you away from the path you are just beginning to walk. When these pressures arrive, apply a simple but powerful mental filter. Picture a golden gate placed at the entrance of your thoughts, right at the doorway of your ears and mind. Every idea, voice, or emotion must pass through it. Start with the first question: is this mine? If the thought feels chaotic, heavy, or draining, it likely does not belong to you. Next, ask, is this theirs? Sometimes what we feel is simply the emotional noise of the world around us. Finally, ask, is this God's? If the message does not carry that deep, unexplainable peace, the kind described in the book of Epistle to the Philippians, then it is not coming from the throne. When your mind learns to filter information this way, you become the guardian of your own inner world. Consider the story of a woman named Sarah. For years, she lived in confusion. Doctors labeled her condition as a nervous disorder because she seemed to feel every emotion around her. Walking into a room felt like stepping into a storm of other people's feelings. In truth, she was simply someone with extraordinary sensitivity, but without the tools to regulate it. Once she began practicing a daily recalibration, just a few minutes each morning guiding her mind into a calmer state, something remarkable happened. Within weeks, the overwhelming noise faded. Her gift did not disappear. Instead, she gained control over it. It was like discovering a volume knob for something that had always been stuck at maximum. Today, she dedicates her life to helping others who carry similar sensitivity. Her ability to sense pain in people allows her to recognize struggles before they are even spoken aloud. What once felt like a curse became a compass for compassion. She moved from feeling broken by years of confusion to becoming one of the first voices of a new spiritual awareness. Now, before we close this moment, pause for a second. If you are able, stand up. If you're driving or unable to stand, simply straighten your spine and become aware of your posture. This is not just another prayer. Think of it as a moment of alignment. Place your right hand over your heart. That position represents openness, being ready to receive. Now reflect on this truth. For years, you may have walked through silent battles, nights filled with questions, moments when fear convinced you something inside you was falling apart. Yet you did not give up. You stayed faithful even during seasons when everything felt dark and uncertain. And that endurance prepared you for the light. The same God who watched your quiet struggles now sees your readiness to step forward. Any force that attempts to pull you back into fear, anxiety, or confusion no longer has authority over the direction of your life. In the days ahead, you may notice shifts. Certain toxic relationships may quietly fade away. Unexpected connections may appear. People who understand your path and encourage your growth. It will feel almost as if you've tuned a radio to a new station and suddenly different signals begin reaching you. Now consider the question being placed before you. Will you carry the responsibility that comes with this awareness? Will you remain faithful during the season of elevation just as you were during the season of testing? If your answer is yes, say it clearly within your heart. I am ready. I am sent. Heaven hears that decision. From this moment forward, you are not merely someone who survived difficult seasons. You are someone who has been prepared to move with purpose. You are not leaving a message. You are leaving a waiting room. Walk forward with confidence. Embrace the strength you have discovered. And when the voice of doubt tries to remind you of the person you used to be, answer it with the truth of who God declares you are. Now pause for a brief moment of silence. Let everything you've heard settle deeply within you. Take a slow breath, and when you feel ready, you can finally say, Amen.